Meeting to order for the San Juan City Commission today, July 16, 2014, at 6 o'clock p.m. If we can all rise for the invocation. Mr. Vasquez, can you lead us in the invocation?
Dear Lord, we thank you for this gathering tonight, and we ask you to continue to bless us with your presence and many gifts. We ask that you please provide comfort, security, and love to the many people that are crossing our borders and being housed here in our area. We also ask that you provide the City Commission with guidance to make the City of San Juan an even better place to live, work, and raise a family. Amen.
And you can face the flag. Commissioner Garcia, can you to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All may be seated. Mr. Rodriguez, are there any public comments? No one signed up? And we will go into the agenda. First item under presentations. A is a presentation of the City of San Juan Day at the food bank. Mr. Cervantes?
Mayor, Commissioners, good afternoon. The chief and I scheduled a City of San Juan Day at the food bank, and that's to give a little bit back to the community. That event is scheduled for this Saturday at the food bank from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and the public is invited. Anybody that is interested in helping is invited to be a part of this event.
Times again, I'm sorry.
This Saturday, July 19, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the food bank in, I think the address is 724 South Cage, or North Cage in FAR.
Who's invited?
Anybody,
Okay.
anybody that wants to go.
The more the merrier.
Yes, anybody that, it should be fun. It should be a fun event.
Thank you, Mr. Cervantes.
You're welcome.
Next, under item B, consider resolution honoring Judge Santos Salinas. I was approached by the family members of Santos Salinas, Judge Salinas, prior to his death. I think that many of you may know him, and they wanted for us to be able, if we could, be gracious enough to recognize him during this time that he was still alive. Unfortunately, before we were able to have the coming meeting, Mr. Salinas passed away. And I'd like to ask the family members that are present to please come forward. I know we have with us this evening his wife, Effie Mae Salinas, and the rest of the family. Could you come forward? Up to the microphone would be fine, or whichever place. Mr. Salinas passed away July 4th of 2014. And so I know that the family is definitely has had a great loss, so has our community. But we want to take this opportunity as a City Commission to recognize his accomplishments, and so being, I'd like to read this proclamation, if I may. And it reads like this. This is a proclamation for Judge Santos Salinas Day. The City of San Juan wishes to show the passing of Judge Santos Perez Salinas, and whereas Judge Santos Salinas was born on June 23rd of 1921 in Almo, Texas, to Perseliano and Rafaelita Perez, and whereas Judge Santos Perez Salinas devoted his life to his spouse, Effie Mae, his children, Fela, Santos Jr., Ruben, Harold, Blanca, Rosie, Linda, and Gloria, as well as 22 great-grandchildren, 36 great-grandchildren, and 2 great-great-grandchildren. Santos Salinas is also survived by his sister Lucy Herrera. Judge Santos Salinas faithfully served his community as municipal judge from 1984 to 1988, and before that, various capacities within the City of San Juan until his retirement in 1997 of public service. Judge Santos Perez Salinas served his community for many years in other capacities, including the U.S. Customs agent, City of FAR police officer, City of San Juan police officer, City of San Juan chief of police, City of San Juan court bailiff, and finally City of San Juan municipal judge. Judge Salinas was a veteran of the U.S. Army and served during World War II for 3 years. Judge Salinas' years of service as municipal judge were marked by exemplary dedication to the best interest of the community and worked constantly for the betterment of its citizens. And whereas the city of San Juan has benefited greatly because of his particular interest and work as an area of municipal judge and chief of police, and through his performance of his duties and responsibilities as judge and chief of police in the past for the city of San Juan, he made excellent and constructive contributions to municipal government in our city. Wherefore, Judge Santos Salinas earned the admiration and high regard of those with whom he had become into contact, his fellow public servants, and on July 2014, Judge Santos Salinas passed away. Now therefore, let it be known that I, San Juanita Sanchez, Mayor of the City of San Juan, along with Mayor Pro Tem Armando Garza Jr., Commissioners Mario Garza, Jesse Ramirez, and Heriberto Suarez, hereby proclaim in his memory July 16, 2014 as Judge Santos Perez Salinas Day in the City of San Juan. Thank you.
We'd like to just thank the citizens of San Juan, Mayor, Commissioner, for honoring our father in this manner. He would be very honored. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll now move on to item C, project update by Ronnie Cruz on the following matters. The water treatment plant number 2, 16-inch water transfer line project, Texas Water Development Board Project 62577, 2014 street reconstruction project, construction of water and sanitary sewer lines along north side of US Expressway 83, lowering of canal crossings, road widening Eldora, Sergeant Trevino, in collaboration with Hidalgo County, lowering of canal crossings and Sioux Road Urban County project, 3.5 million gallon water treatment plant number 2 expansion and rehabilitation to existing 3.5 plant project. EDAP project, first time sewer connections to approximately 105 residents. Mr. Cruz.
Mayor and Commissioners, my memo is in your packet. I'll start off with the first project, the transfer line. This is the project you're seeing underway right now. It's a water treatment line from the north plant, which is the one on I Road, to the old plant over here at City Hall. It's a treated water line that once the new plant is going, it's going to be sending water to the reservoirs that are at City Hall. That project is almost complete. Actually, the line is all the way to City Hall already. They just need to go back and tie in, clean up, tie in all the lines and put the valves in, and they'll be complete. So we're anticipating that within 30 days, that project will be completed, and they're way ahead of schedule on that one. Any questions on that project?
Any questions on that?
Ronnie, is there a portion of this that's going to cross over streets where it's going to cause streets to be torn or
Yes. Well,
broken up?
from when we crossed Business 83, went into Wyoming, the little easement that's there, then it went into 7th Street, so those streets are cut, and they're already cut. But they're already not patched with hot mix, they're just backfill. They're gonna come and overlay the whole street from back of curb to back of curb, not just to cut.
And you'll supervise to ensure that that's done in a way
Yes.
that's,
Yes, that's part of the project.
okay.
On Wyoming, next to the canal.
We're just gonna go up to what you see, because the irrigation district claims that that's all their road. I don't know how, but that's what they were telling us, because they wanted us to get an easement. So we already have several lines through there. So on the east side, but there's no curb and gutter. So we're just gonna pave what's there. That's all we're gonna do on that area. The next project is a street reconstruction project. This is the one that's also going on right now. You can see the 12 streets that are there. Bears Trail being completed, Antelope from Alameda to First Street completed, Mesquite, Buffalo to Oblate completed, Hackberry, Cougar to Oblate, they began construction on that one. Ebony from Doe to Oblate, they began on that one. Citrus is pending. Chaparral, this is, began construction. They're gonna pave that one probably tomorrow or the next day. That's what they're working on right now. Chaparral, Buffalo to Oblate's been completed. Buffalo from Alameda to First Street has been completed. Mesquite from the cul-de-sac to Buffalo Street, they began construction on that one. And then on the other one, Iowa, from Expressway 83 to First Street, the drainage has been completed, and on Chaparral, the drainage has been completed. They're gonna go back and pave it. They did all the concrete work, now they're gonna go back. They backfilled, I know we had some issues with some businesses, but it's opened up and cleaned with caliche. It'll be back, it'll be paved when they start paving all the rest of the streets.
I had a call from a resident stating that there either was not enough signage or no signage for giving enough notice to people on oblate streets to be able to start slowing down or men at work. Apparently, the backhoe was coming, but because it has to back up, it would come into oblate, and so they happen to travel pretty fast through that street. And so unless it was being, put in before, the folks don't know until they see that, that thing backing up. So they talked about it not only within Oblate, but also within the streets. So can you take a look at that?
Yeah, I know that we had some issues on Chaparral and Iowa also with barricades. They need to if they're gonna close the street, they need to close it completely. Don't let anybody go around somebody's yard or something. And we've had discussions, but it's, I know exactly what you're talking about. They're putting in the valley gutters on Oblate and all the streets hitting there, and they're coming around. Yeah, okay.
Ronnie, also, we had discussed about some damage that had been done on Iowa, near the expressway. And you had mentioned that had been repaired, but
Oh, on the sprinkler system?
right,
Oh, that's the other contractor.
okay,
That's the one where the transfer line has been taken care of,
okay, so that was, I was under the impression that was on the street, but that was on the transfer line.
on the transfer line. It was where they went through the back of that yard, they cut the sprinkler system.
But that's been repaired?
It's been repaired.
Okay.
And they've spoken with the owners and
The owners,
everything's fine.
okay.
Okay, that project is also way ahead of schedule, so we're not gonna have no issue. They're way past the 50%.
Fortunately, there hasn't been rain to slow them down, and
Very
unfortunately,
little rain.
there hasn't been rain.
The next project is the construction of the water and sanitary sewers along the north side of the expressway. That project is ready to go out for bids. We're hoping within a week or 2 weeks, we're acquiring the easements. One of the easements is a property owner from India. The documents have been mailed to him, and we heard that within 2 or 3 weeks, we'll get that document back. He's fine with it. We spoke with him. Javier took care of that. And so we're gathering all the easements along the expressway so we don't have an issue. And we got all the documents. We're trying to get all the people together, make sure they know what's going on. But we're almost ready to go out for that one also. And then we extended the project a little bit on Sergeant Trevino. So what we did, we went all the way to the Mercedes-Benz and tied it in there, because that line that's coming along is also on the study that we did several years ago. It's gonna be extended along Sergeant Trevino all the way to the tank at Santa Fe, because that line's too small. It's been identified for that area. If it ever grows along the expressway, we need a larger line, and that's what we're doing, putting in the larger lines right now. So we're leaving it prepared for that project. Any questions on that project? Okay, the next one is the lowering of the canals. Obviously, you know that El Dorado Road's been completed. We have an issue with Sergeant Trevino. There's a AT&T line there that the phone company missed it. we had documents from 2003, March of 2003, where we sent them a set of plans, and they stated 2013. What did I say?
2003.
Three, I don't know, a long time ago. 2013, and they stated they had nothing there. We invited them to the pre-construction meeting. They didn't show up. They said, well, we don't have to, we don't have anything there. There is a big cable line, but they said, well, it belongs to Time Warner. Okay, so Time Warner said, we'll move it. They went out there and moved their stuff, and the line's still there. So we went back, well, whose is it? And we found out it was AT&T. So we're waiting for, they have issued a work order. They're pushing it real quick. They're trying to push it real quick. I didn't get an update today, but the work order's been issued. I'm just trying to get a timetable of when they're gonna move that line. First time since March of 2013.
It hasn't happened.
Oh, no, no.
No, since you found out that
Since
there
we
was.
found out, it's probably been about a month. So hopefully, and it is a big line. I don't know if you've been a thick line, and obviously, we rip it out, we'll know whose it is at that point. But I think it's gonna be a little bit quicker. I'm trying to see if the contractor can get in there anyway, because it might be not affected their construction. They're gonna go over the poles, the new poles that they moved. Everybody's been cooperative except for them, because the poles were moved a long time ago. Magic Valley moved their poles, they moved their lines. Everybody did everything except for this line, but we always thought it was a Time Warner cable line, because that's what everybody said. But obviously, we're pushing it, but we did follow the proper procedures, is that we just didn't. And we have documents that saying that they knew, they just missed it. They missed it. But I think it's gonna get quicker than, yeah. And the problem with this project now is that they're getting ready to start irrigating vegetables. So we have a short timetable. I've tried to explain it to AT&T. We don't have time. We need to do it now.
Right.
And that's also on the next project. The contractor will tell you need to get out, you need to go out for bids for the engineer. We're not doing this one, but that their timetable is gonna close if they don't go out for bids quickly on this project, for the Sioux Road.
Ronnie, I spoke with one of the engineers at HAF today, and they were telling me that they'd sent plans to you and to Urban County. But does it need your review? So I guess just tell them, they don't need you. I don't want them to say, well, we were waiting to hear back from you. It's just Urban County that needs to give them
Well, actually, we are commenting, because
Okay.
I think they didn't do a lot of stuff that extend the sidewalks far enough. They didn't do the
Okay.
roads, the drainage, that we need to take care of the west side of Sioux Road. So but that's been modified. So today, I just got it earlier, and I think it's the final set. So they need to proceed, which is the next item, the lowering of the canal of Sioux Road. Any questions on those two? The expansion of the water treatment plant, as you know, it's been awarded to Texas Descon, and the notice to proceed was issued July 14th. It was issued on Monday. So now you're gonna start seeing, they're starting to mobilize already, starting to get all their equipment ready to go. So they got a green light, and they got 660 days to complete for final completion, which is 2 years. It's gonna start going quicker now.
expect that they'll take the entirety of that time?
But at 600 days, they should be completed. The 60 days is the final completion. Yes, I think so. What takes long is the ordering of the plan itself, and it should be done now. In Chicago, yes. So that's proceeding.
Do they have a project supervisor, or you're gonna be on that?
We have our own inspector, but we expect one from them, and I know they're trying to hire one from McAllen, and we're hoping they do, because I know the inspector from the city, but I don't know who they're gonna have yet. They haven't identified it.
This is the first one they do?
First one they do. Yes.
All of them, but this one in very particular. Do you get meetings with them for reporting back?
Oh,
or-
yeah. So Water Dome, we meet once a month with the Water Dome board on everything. Just like the the other transfer line that we're doing, we meet once a month with the water development board at City Hall, everybody together and go over the whole thing. Same thing has to happen here. And the last project, of course, is the EDAP. What you have there is, I have an update because things have changed. On July 7th, the loan already closed. So what we're doing now, we're working on the environmental, which is a facility plan. That facility plan includes environmental and it's a PAD project, planning and design. So the design is going to start, hopefully within 6 to 8 months, we'll get the environmental approved and with the plans themselves. And of course, we need to go to the Water Development Board one more time for funding for the project.
For the next phase.
For the next phase, for the construction.
And when do you think that would be? You said 5 to 6 months?
6 to 8 months, depending on the environmental. The environmental document is what takes a long time, but as that's being done, we're working on the plans. We're not, hopefully by then we'll be ready also, so it all goes together to the Water Development Board for final approval, and then we can apply for the funding already. But the next step is that Chris already knows, now it's phase 2 of this project.
Any other questions? No, thank you. Next item on the agenda, under public hearings and ordinances, item, section 6A, hold a public hearing and consider ordinance for the rezoning request from general business district to heavy commercial district for the property legally described as west 258.5 feet of the north 100 feet of Lot 2 Mirales subdivision located 912 East US Business 83, as requested by Armando Mireles. Mr. Cervantes.
Yes, Mr. Mireles is proposing to rezone the property from general business district to heavy commercial district in order to build a warehouse in the back of the existing store. The new warehouse will serve as a storage facility for his clothing and accessory stores. There is an existing commercial building in the property that was built back in 2008. In order to build a warehouse behind the existing building, the owner needs to change part of his property to heavy commercial district since the warehouse will generate heavy truck traffic. Because the property has frontage on US Business 83, which is a major commercial corridor, staff recommends approval. The applicant is proposing to leave a general business zoning buffer along the south and east of his Lot 2 property. On June 19, Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing and recommended approval with a 4-0 vote. Nobody showed up in opposition.
When we talked about, well, let me open up the public hearing. I'd like to open up the public hearing at 6:22. Are there any comments from members of the public for or against? Any questions? Any comments for or against? Mr. Cervantes, I wanted to ask, when he talks about the portion that he wants to leave as a general business buffer, that would be because of the existing business that he has right now and then the proposed?
There are houses to the east and also to the southwest. So that's why this buffer is proposed. He's only changing to heavy commercial
On the back
where
part.
he's going to build a warehouse.
Okay.
And then part of the store, the existing store, part of it is also a warehouse. So we're changing just that part of the property and where he's going to build that,
And
the
now,
new warehouse.
he mentioned that in the future, he wants to put like about a 20,000 square foot
Yes,
building.
so he will be able to do that
on the
with
front, on the front end.
in the south end is when Mr. Mireles is here. In the south end of the property, it is my understanding he wants to build more businesses. He already has the commercial zoning for that, so it will not be a
Have to come
problem.
back once.
No, if it's just retail, it's not a problem. The situation is we have a warehouse that generates heavy truck traffic
Right.
that requires a heavy commercial zoning.
Okay.
It's on Business 83, close to Cesar Chavez Road on the south side of Business 83. The name of the store is LA Store. It's a very popular.
Parking lot's pretty full.
They're doing very well, so we want them to succeed. And
When do you foresee the building of the 20,000 square foot building?
we're hoping in the near future. We've been someone for 9 years now. We went from 6,000 to 15,000.
Congratulations on the continued success that you've been having. Yeah. Are there any other questions from the committee? If not, I'd like to close this public hearing at 6:25. Is there a motion for approval as presented?
Motion to approve?
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem and second by Commissioner Suarez. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Good luck.
Next item on the agenda, B, consider an ordinance repealing ordinance 89-013 and updating the City of San Juan Code of Ordinances, regulating garage sales, flea markets, permitting garage sales in residential zones under certain conditions, requiring the owners or occupants of homes within the residential zone areas to obtain a permit, make it unlawful for owner or occupant to hold garage sales within a permit, ordering fines for violation of this ordinance, prohibiting the collection, storage, display, and sale of used and new goods in open and unimproved lots in the city, and making it unlawful for any person to use any street, sidewalk, plaza, park, or other public place within the city as a place of business. Mr. Cervantes.
Been talking about for the past month. What this will do is it will allow up to 4 garage sale permits per year. It includes the 90-day minimum separation between permits that we discussed, and also raises the price to $10 per permit.
My question to you is, through the increase, and I saw the numbers that you generated through your report that you provide us, there's a bit that ask just for the regular. How do you intend, and do you see a need for more personnel to be out now that you're allowing more often than not? And how are they doing right now, in especially the weekends?
We have a code enforcement officer working. We may see maybe 10 or 20% more garage sales than we normally. I don't think a lot of families will take advantage of the 4 permits. Some families will, but I don't think you're going to see a big difference overall. So in my opinion, the code enforcement officers are not going to be impacted. There's no need to hire new people.
What are the hours the court enforcer works on Saturdays? 8 to 4.
And if, so if somebody's reporting a violation, it would be on a Sunday, would be to the,
Yeah, if somebody is having a garage Sunday and they don't have a permit, then please. But that will be rare. Most of the garage sales are.
now, as far as signage, I know there's one of the big issues that I've seen citations to people are because of the signs that they put out.
Require that they put their address. They have to have an address. And they're supposed to remove it after the garage sale is completed. So we do allow signs to send people to the garage sale with the condition that they put an address in the sign.
Mayor, Commissioners, if I can add to Mr. Cervantes, we do have, when we have a complaints coming in on Sunday days, the garage sales, we do have the court enforcement change the schedule, and we've done it before on a couple of occasions to make sure that we do random checks, make sure people are not violating their permits. So we allow that.
And then you talked about displaying, prohibiting the collection, storage, display, and sale of used and open unimproved lots in the city. Is that in general, or just to residential, or just overall?
The park is not allowed.
So businesses cannot do that?
Well, if you remember, we have another ordinance that allows outdoor sales if it pertains to the ordinance. Like, for example, on Valentine's Day, if you have a a flower shop, you're allowed to sell if it pertains to your business. But if it's O'Reilly's or a convenience store, then you will not be allowed. And that was done through another ordinance that was adopted last year.
So if I have a tire shop, I can't sell Valentine stuff because
No.
it doesn't co-op. Okay.
You can do like a tire sale.
Yes.
Are there any other questions? Did you talk about the fees, Mr. Cervantes?
Yes, we're proposing from $5 to $10. Most cities in the valley, that's how much they're charging, and it will really help with the city finances to go up to
And the
$10.
citation violation stays the same?
Yeah, that stays the same. We normally, like if it's a first offender, we just give them a warning. Most people comply with the ordinance and get a permit. Occasionally, you'll find a family that didn't get it. If it's a first-time offender, we just give them a warning, and we ask him to come in on Monday to get the permit. The citations is for the repeat offenders, that we have a few. We have a few people that want to have sales every weekend, right? So those are the ones that, for those is when we, you know, we give citations. But that can change.
Not, is there a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Who seconded that?
I did.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. C, consider an ordinance adjusting the corporate boundary of the city of San Juan, providing for the voluntary annexation of the Sol y Mar RV Park consisting of 5-acre tract of land out of lot 100-acre tract as described in volume W, pages 557-559 Hidalgo County Deed Records, with a 100-acre tract as shown on plat of Alamo Land and Sugar Company subdivision as recorded in volume 1, pages 24 through 26 Hidalgo County Map Records of Hidalgo County, Texas, and including Ridge Road right-of-way between the Ridge Heights subdivision and Sol y Mar RV Park, all located approximately a quarter of a mile east of Stewart Road on the south side of Ridge Road. Mr. Cervantes.
Yes, this is the annexation of the Solimar RV Park that we discussed a few months ago. The value of the property is approximately, including the mobile homes that are there, is $297,000, so the tax base will increase by that amount. That translates to a little bit over $2,000 in additional property taxes that will come into the city each year. And more importantly, this will allow the water line project that will greatly improve the living conditions of the residents in that park.
Questions? Motion for approval? Is there a second? All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Discussion of the proposed sexually oriented businesses ordinance, Mr. Cervantes.
Yes, because the city of San Juan have an adopted sexually oriented business ordinance, the city is very vulnerable that those type open that type of hold off on the issuance of the permit. If that type of permit is placed on hold, the city risks expensive litigation that we're likely to lose, since the city does not have an ordinance in place regulating the location of such businesses. In this packet, there is a paper obtained from the legal department of the Texas Municipal League that addresses the local regulation of sexually oriented businesses. Staff highlighted key sections for your review. Because of federal free speech laws, it is important to not completely prohibit those types of businesses from the corporate limits, but through an ordinance, the city can restrict their locations to be a certain distance from neighborhoods, from schools, and from churches. The city could also require for those types of businesses to be licensed to allow staff to check the applicant's criminal background. Their future.
I saw the sections that you bring in with the, the case law on the past decisions by the Supreme Court. And one of the things that I suppose that as we're drafting this ordinance, if we were to have the ordinance in place by the time, if for some reason we were approached by that, and I know it talks about the first constitutional right to be able to have that type of business because of the, I think it's the, freedom of speech. How is it that, by having that in place, how is it that we can secure it enough, I suppose is the thing, that if we were to deny it, I guess, on a certain zone, but we would actually be able to deny it in all of the city. Is that correct? In other words, we would designate an area where it could not be.
What we're doing is we're going to designate an area where it can be, right?
Yes,
That's
the
the way
way,
we're wording it.
the way we're proposing the ordinance, you will have to be at least to commercial zone, and you will have to be at 2,000 feet from a house, from a neighborhood, from a church, or a school. So very few spots in the city follow
House residential, is what you're saying, residential.
house residential, yeah. It could be a neighborhood, or a residential lot with no house. If it's a recorded subdivision that has no houses, but then it will qualify under the 2,000. So if we adopt this ordinance, very few spots in the city will qualify. And as long as we do that, the ordinance will withstand a challenge, because we cannot completely prohibit them, but we can really limit their location.
Let me ask this question. If there, for example, open fields, and I see a lot of that on the, still in the north side, some on the south, and those are not designated one way or the other, be it residential or anything like that, then if they were to come, let's say the ordinance gets passed, and then someone comes in and says, well, I want to make it now residential, then at the point where they would come right after it's become residential, they can go back, but this was in existence before, and there's a tract of land that was already exposed as and designated by the city as part of the ordinance. How would that?
I think I understand your question. What's going to happen is if we have an empty land right now, or empty section of area in the city, the ordinance right now as it stands would allow the sexually oriented business to be there. But as soon as this land is designated as residential, I mean, this is the way I haven't talked to Mr. Cervantes about this, but as soon as it's done, well, then that would exclude any SOBs from going in there, or sexually oriented businesses, I'm sorry. Sounds nicer than SOB. Sexually oriented businesses from going there. Once that property becomes residential, then the ordinance would take care of it.
Now, if we have I know we talked the last meeting about having a plan for the city as far as development. So with that anticipation, then we could actually, without having zoned it yet, or upon zoning it, you know, because you're going to go out there to take a look. We haven't created that plan just yet. So it kind of would want to be able to do it concurrently.
With that in mind, yes, I think that's, and we've talked about the master overlay with the EDC director, and I've already admitted it's a little over my head, and I've talked to Mr. Cervantes, and I'm finally understanding it a little bit, but when we've talked about it, I know it's going to be meetings with citizens and landowners, and everybody will get together, correct? This is what I've been told. And then at that point, a decision will be made as to zoning. But yes, I mean, I think it makes sense. These sexually oriented businesses and the ordinances you have to keep that in mind when we're doing it.
Mr. Vasquez, are you going to consult with, for instance, these other attorneys that have been through this, you know, legal process or stuff like that, or is it just something that you all are just gonna?
We received an ordinance from TML. So we have an ordinance that they sent us that they're recommending. So the ordinance that yes.
What I'm saying is consulting with other attorneys who've been through this type of issue.
I may do that, but I feel comfortable doing it. I believe that Mr. Munoz and I can hammer it out. But TML is a very good source. They're the ones that help us out. And just because we create this ordinance does not mean that we are eliminating all lawsuits. If you read the article that was provided, they can still challenge. So we try to keep it, within that parameter.
And I guess that's what I want, is that those areas that we really want to secure for a certain type of development are secure enough that they can't puncture that, limit or regulation, so it can be solid enough and not end up with something we would want to see across, as Mr. Delgado said, across a shrine or near a school or anything
Yeah,
like that.
with the that TML sent us, I made it a little bit more restrictive from what they sent us. Nothing will be able to develop along the expressway or along Raul Longoria or even Nebraska. Only a few spots, like South Stewart, like way down south. Very few spots will qualify. So that will really protect us. But I'll be working with Mr. Vasquez, and hopefully we'll have something before you for your August 12th meeting.
Approving, allowing you
To work with Mr. Vasquez to bring you an ordinance.
are there any other questions? If not, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item is item E, consider an ordinance of the City's Council of the City of San Juan, Texas City approving a negotiated resolution between the city and Texas Gas Service regarding the company's May 1st, 2014 cost of service adjustment. Filing granting the company's request for good cause waiver of language in section C.5 of the COSA clause declaring existing rates to be unreasonable, approving attached tariffs that reflect rate adjustments consistent with a negotiated settlement, and finding the rates to be set by the attached tariffs to be just and reasonable. Providing for the recovery of the city and the TG's reasonable and necessary rate cost case expenses. Adopting a savings clause determining that this ordinance was passed in accordance with the requirements of the Texas Open Meetings Act, declaring an effective date, repealing any prior ordinances inconsistent with this ordinance, and requiring delivery of the ordinance to the company and the city's legal counsel. Mr. Gonzalez, Chief Gonzalez.
Yes, Mayor, Commissioner, this is just a standard ordinance that has been formatted with all cities, so it's just a standard ordinance to follow.
Are there any questions? If not, is there a motion for approval? Is there a second? All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item F, consider an act addressing the absences of the City of San Juan Commission. I put this on the agenda, and it stems from last week's meeting. Well, it stems from many meetings in the past, but particularly brought to mind because of last week's meeting cancellation. Over the years that I've been on the commission, I see trends, and I'm sure some absences are very legitimate, some are, I believe, a bit questionable. If you remember when we were having the discussion regarding the city charter and any amendments, one of the conversations that came up at that time that I definitely brought up to the commission at that time was regarding us not having anything on our charter to address, or ordinances to address our absences. And why is that important? Just like last week, I know that there were very legitimate reasons not to be here, but if one person is gone, the second person is gone, and then a third person is gone, I mean, we're not making quorum. And I always ask of Mr. Rodriguez to make me, send me a memo and tell me who canceled and why. I'm looking at history from January of 2012. It's been canceled because, the Mayor Pro Tem and Mr. Suarez and Mr. Ramos were not able to come. Cancellation. February 28th of 2013, a few months later, again, was canceled. It was an amended regular meeting agenda, canceled.
You said 2012 and then 2013?
This is 2013.
As you said, a couple of months later, but
Oh, I'm sorry,
it's
you're
actually
right.
a year later.
Yeah, a year later. This one's a month later, March 26, 2013, confirming that the Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Bob Garza, and Mr. Ramos was not able to be present. It was canceled. April 16th, a month later, 2013, work session agenda canceled. I don't have who canceled on this one. It was just the agenda saying that it had been canceled. September 5th, Thursday, work session agenda canceled. And the typical reason they've been canceled is because of quorum. September 14th, 2013, special meeting canceled. May 31st, 2013, cancellation again, and we're talking, and when it's provided to me, Commissioner Garza, Mayor Pro Tem Garza, Mr. Suarez, and I don't see anything, Mr. Ramos, so it comes in threes. Quorum for tonight's meeting, this is May 13th of this past 2014, May 13th of 2014. All I have is Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Garza, Commissioner Ramos, Commissioner Suarez, all said they could not come. Then July 8th, which is last week, Mayor Pro Tem had a family issue, Commissioner Ramirez had an issue, and Mr. Suarez was on vacation. But then we had the meeting the next day and everybody was present. And then a special call meeting was made for this meeting, to have a special call meeting. And also came to mind was the fact that when we brought in the EDC and we were looking at the problems with people being present and all of that issue was keep to your regular scheduled meetings. And I know that there'll be instances where things really do happen. But I want to be able to be held accountable, myself with everybody else. And that is, we don't have any kind of consequences for missing meetings. We were able to review the meetings, the minutes, not the minutes, but the different recommendations, and I'm going to pass, you've seen this before, that's nothing new. That was recommended by, right, but I think they were at those meetings and at the town halls. One of the things that we discussed during that time was what can we do to help that out? How can we be held accountable to make sure that we all have an understanding that we're obligated to be present, not just by word, but by actual consequences. And so what this one does, it provides us what Alamo does, it stated what FAR does, and then the top one, the first one, was the one that was being recommended at that time by Attorney Palacios. Now, the only reason we were not able to go forward on that was because we only included items on the amendment that had to do with the elections. And we all agreed to that, and so when we came later to find out was that, well, you know what, you can't do another amendment until 2 years from now. So what I'm asking is that we consider this, and this, the way that's proposed, as an ordinance for attendance by this commission, and then have the practice of, at the next meeting, you know, talking about the absence and accepting the excuse, because it talks about excuses as well. So I'm proposing to you all that we do work on a ordinance addressing our absences. And I'd like to follow the track that was provided to us, that's already been done, the research and the work by Palacios when he brought this to our attention. And that's what I'm proposing. And that's what I'm asking, that we approve or ask council to work on making an ordinance that reflects what was suggested by Mr. Palacios.
Mayor, this is an issue that's in your charter, so the only way, in my legal opinion, that you can do this would be pursuant to your charter, because within your charter, you have a section that's titled Section 4, Forfeiture of Office. I'm sorry, Section 2.06, Vacancies, Forfeiture of Office, and the only time that you can forfeit your office, according to your charter, is if someone is convicted of a crime involving moral turpitude. So you would have to amend your charter. An ordinance wouldn't allow you to do that, which is a forfeiture of your office. You all are elected officials. You can't do it pursuant to an ordinance. You would have to amend your charter. So I think I understood that you want to create an ordinance that would allow you to forfeit your office if you have absences?
Or at least to hold us accountable. Yeah, and forfeiture is really what it is, because
Okay.
the bottom line is, if you're, it talks about being absent 6 times within a span, and it goes into the particulars. I think that's, I think it's important to have something. I see this occasion, and you know, many times, I didn't read all of them. Many times, we don't even have the meeting posted because it just didn't, no one could make it, and you know, I see patterns every once in a while, and I just think that we have to be accountable.
My legal opinion that you cannot do this pursuant to an ordinance. You'd have to do a charter amendment.
And what I want to do is every time that someone's absent, we come back, and can we do an ordinance where they have to explain whether they're absent or not absent?
And if you're leading up to a punishment or leading to a forfeiture, I don't see how you can create that in an ordinance.
Well, I think it's accountability. How do we have accountability then?
If somebody's not here, somebody's not here. Simple as that.
Yeah, but see, we just, the problem is that in many occasions, we can't even have business because 3 of you are gone. One calls in, so the second and the third one.
We're doing it right now.
I didn't get a chance to review the ordinance you had until right now, but when is, I know that we cannot change the charter for another 2 years, but when was the last time, when was it? Is it going to be 2 years?
It would be November.
Next November?
So next November.
An option would be to change your charter at that point. If
So we can start working on it now.
you could start working on it, and the way to do it, I mean, it would have to be, this commission would have to make a motion and grant it that you're going to create this amendment, or, the procedures you followed in the past, or however this commission would like to do it.
Do you remember how many months before, so that I can prepare that? Would be, was it,
How many months before?
yeah, because we had to have a certain amount of time to be
Oh.
able to make the notice and then actually get it
Posted and.
posted and
okay.
get it on the.
I would need to check with Rick Palacios. I don't
Okay,
remember
if
the
you would.
exact time. Yes.
Just to prepare that for next coming months. I would appreciate that. So let me ask you, if I'm asking you to continue looking into it, you would need to have it formally, though, as for the amendment, not for the ordinance. Would that be correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, if I may, Mayor, I think when we, at least my recollection was, we had split up into, it was 16 different amendments, and we had decided that that was probably a little too much, and so we decided on 8. And then I think we all agreed, at least to my recollection, that we were going to move towards, because there are still 8 that we agreed needed attention. And so I think, and on this, I'm certain that we agreed that this was something that needed to be there as well. And as far as the pattern that you described, you very conveniently missed out any of the meetings that you were absent from. But that's okay, because.
I don't make a quorum.
That doesn't ever seem to come to question. But I agree with you that we do need to be held accountable. I do believe that we do need to address this. And I think that as opposed to addressing it now, we need to have work sessions as we did before and ensure that this comes back as part of that. And I think as far as work that's been done, I think we discussed this over 2 meetings, this particular one over 2 meetings.
Yes, I agree.
And so if we could just agree at this point to, and as I recall, it's in August. I don't remember the exact date, but it is within the first or second week of August
For the notice?
that the notice has to be done. So I would recommend that, maybe next summer, we can begin the workshop to address the remaining 8 and any other that we identify. That's what I would recommend, and that will make sure that we're not just addressing this particular issue, which is important, but the remaining ones that we discussed as well.
So then, council, at this point, it would just be no action. I just want to make sure that we all are very cognizant of our presence at our meetings.
That's what
so
I
we
would
get
recommend.
business
Mayor.
done.
Yes.
Item 7, under contractual and final plans annexation. Consider authorizing the interim city manager to advertise and accept applications for the position of city manager. I remember, although I was here at that meeting when Chief Gonzalez was appointed, looking at the minutes, one of the things that were discussed by the commission, and I think was an appropriate thing, was to wait for the actual going out for a city manager until after the elections, and that has gone and passed. It's been a couple of months now. And I have been inquiring about posting that, and for some reason, maybe it's miscommunication, I'm not sure, but it hasn't been posted. And I know that Ms. Cordero has provided the past recommendations, or what was done the last time when Mr. Rodriguez was hired. And so I'm asking just to give the interim city manager and Ms. Cordero direction to begin that process. It's not a fast process, and we're already 2 months after, or 3 months after JJ has left us, and so I'd like to be able to give that direction to Ms. Cordero and to especially Chief Gonzalez, so we can get that going. Are there any questions?
I just want to be clear, so are we authorizing them to advertise, or are we
Yes.
authorizing them
To accept,
to be?
advertise and accept applications. Is there a motion for approval?
Mayor, if I may, The only thing I think, and I think it's just because of the budget, and I think starting now is appropriate, but if we could maybe just agree, if everybody's amenable to it, to wait to do the actual hiring until the beginning of the fiscal year, that way we can start off clean and it won't affect our current budget. Because I know that we've discussed about I don't want to call it a hiring freeze, but that's the word that's been used as we get through the end of this budget. Again, I think starting the process now is appropriate, but if we could all agree to wait to do the actual hiring until on or after October 1, I don't know what your thoughts are.
My thoughts is that, I know we've talked about the different positions that we're looking at. I know that this one, I think, is just critical. If we were to get a great applicant on the first month, and I don't know how long, we leave it open until we have, I guess, people that start actually looking like they qualify. But we had something that was excellent the first month, and we were able to start. I mean, I just think this is one position that's critical for our city. I appreciate all the work that Chief Gonzalez is doing. I said, but I would love to get my city manager on board,
Our city manager.
our city manager on board. I think that one's very critical. And we're able to find somebody in the first, I mean, it took, I think, 4 months or so before we got Mr. Rodriguez, or you all hired Mr. Rodriguez. And in the past, it shows that it takes time.
To get a good one, it does
To get a
take
good
time.
one. So I would not want to say, though, that if you don't get a really good one in a month, that we would be restricted and can't do it, because they would be able to come in and just, you know, start bringing the direction that, especially during this is such a critical time. So I don't want to be restrictive. I think if we find them, we find them. I think it's still going to take time. So it might lead us to past October. But I don't want to lose the opportunity that we have someone who is ready now that doesn't get picked up by somebody else because we had to wait. So that's my opinion.
Well, at any rate, I think we do need to begin the search at this time. And so, having said that, I'll make a motion to approve that we allow city manager to advertise for the permanent city manager.
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item B, discussion and possible action to amend the Personnel Policy Manual, Chapter 1, Employment, Section 1.15, nepotism. I put this one on the agenda for several reasons. Commissioner Ramirez, I know it's going to pertain to you very, very specifically, but it's not really in that tone that I'm bringing it up. I'm bringing it up because I know that when one, I think all of us have received complaints of some of the residents talking about why is this happening. Also, I have had questions as to, we know that your son is still currently working with the city, as is your sister. And so that, when we brought this issue of nepotism, I was here when we were looking at the policy. We did a major policy overhaul. And this was very particular for me, that I remember very specifically the intent in which it was done. And so when I met with my directors for the first time back in 2011, I specifically asked that this issue be addressed, one, through the application process, that it should be a question in the application, whether someone in your department or someone in the city, if you're going to get that job, that you're related especially to the commission, or anybody in the city, in particular to the commission. I know that it's gone, I don't even know it's on that application already, Ms. Cordero. Has that been added? Okay, and that just got added very recently, correct? So it just got added, so time has passed by, and thank goodness that's there. So then the question becomes that they need to be able to reveal that. When you look at the policy, one of the questions when I asked about your son coming to work after he did, I think, his seasonal or the first leg of what he was doing and then coming back, because I think he was already working when you got elected, was why is it then on the second part, wouldn't that be in violation? Okay. I got an answer. I did meet with Ms. Cordero, and Ms. Cordero had already met, and I think I spoke to Chief Gonzalez. and they told me that they had all gotten together with Mr. Vasquez and came up, all three of them came up with the recommendation that the part of this policy that says, if you look at the first 4 paragraphs, the employment of relatives in an organization may cause serious conflicts and problems with favoritism and employee morale. Employees who are related shall not occupy a position in the same department as a relative, 1, work directly for or supervise a relative. This policy applies to all employees. And then there was that big question in the parentheses, note, does not apply to seasonal employees. Okay. Then we went on to the next part. And it says, no person related to the city manager, mayor, or any member of the city council shall be employed in a paid position in the city, period. City policy precludes employment from involvement in the employment process of those with whom they have familial relationships. Continuous employment, and then it comes, as anything does, the exception. Okay? If they had been working here before, which is your sister, falls under the 6 months in public office. So I understand that, and I approved that. What we never approved when this was done, that does not apply to seasonal employees, did not go on to the next line. And the next line is, no person related to the city mayor or commission or city council should be employed in a paid position in the city, with the exception. What I was told was the difference here was because this gentleman was, your son, was seasonal. It is not written that way. I know that you interpret it that way, but it was not written that way. But I understand you've given your legal opinion, decision was made, you know, at no fault of his. Y'all made a decision, it was commented, it was done. I'd like to see it be clarified tonight. I'd like to be able to see that it does not apply to seasonal employees, relates only to the top part of that paragraph. But the part that says no person related to us shall be employed, unless they're already employed with us. I think that's important. I think that we have to be, there's a reason you have nepotism laws for this particularly. And I don't think that we want to benefit our family more than we want other members of our community to be benefited. We have the benefit of sitting here and making decisions that impact the families. But I don't think we want to protect this so that our families can come and work. And if it's seasonal, it only applies if they're seasonal but not continuous, and if they were seasonal at the time, but not every single time you come back, well, I was seasonal last year. Let them complete your time. But now you're related to the member of the commission. And you can't. And if you look at the one at the top, it talks about employees with the city. It doesn't talk the members of the commission family. And to what extent, we already have to what extent. In other words, we couldn't have our mothers, our daughters, our sons, or our fathers, or on the second level, we couldn't have our brothers, our sisters, our grandsons, our grandmothers, grandfathers, and on the third level, we couldn't have our aunts, nieces, nephews, great-grandsons, and so on and so forth, to the third degree level. That's what I'm asking for, that clarity, so it doesn't happen again. And it was and it happened because it was interpreted. I know when this was made, that was very clear. It'd just be nobody. If they're already working in the city, so be it. But afterwards, no. And I'd like us to be able to clarify that, because I know you read it differently, counsel, and I just don't feel that that should be the way it should read. It should be anybody that is related to us to that degree level, both by blood or by marriage, should be not allowed to come to work with us.
Begin by apologizing to Commissioner Ramirez if I've caused you any embarrassment with this, in my legal opinion. However, we are not breaking any laws with the interpretation or how I interpreted this policy. Remember, this is a personnel policy. This is not a city charter. This is not state statute. In fact, when you read the state statutes indicate who is in charge of hiring and appointing and supervising. In this case, we have a city charter that says the city manager is in charge of appointing and hiring and supervising employees. So the nepotism laws at that point do not apply to the city council. Now, if the city charter changed that, which is completely within your prerogative, then we would have issues. However, this is only a personnel policy, so, and again, that doesn't mean any less of a situation or causing problems with morale, but we are not breaking the law. And I just want to make sure that we're clear that we're not breaking the law, because the state statute clearly says this is what nepotism is, this is what nepotism is not. Now, you have created this policy that says, and to be honest with you, you know, I read it that seasonal employees, it says in the middle, all of a sudden it says, does not apply to seasonal employees. I don't know why it's in the middle in there like that, but I'll go ahead and agree. Then if you feel there is some confusion or need some clarification, then this would be a perfect time to amend your personnel policies. But I just wanted to,
No, and I
you know.
understand, that's why I didn't put it that, there wasn't, I put it as an amended, because if, you know, everything is subject to interpretation. I know that, you and I know that. But knowing how this was created and knowing what has been questioned at this point, I think it leads for us to go with clarity and change it. And it can be just that we're now going to indent and make a separate paragraph, or find a way that this particular page clearly states to any of us that next time anybody in our family decides within these, you know, restrictions, decides they want to come and work for the city, that we're able to tell them, you can't. That's what I want.
I'm sorry, Mayor. And just to be clear, if the city council says, well, I would like to clarify and say that seasonal employees can be related to the city commission and the, you know, and the employee, or it doesn't apply to seasonal employees, then you can do that as well, because again, you're not breaking the law.
Right, and I think when it said to seasonals, it was making reference to employees with employees.
Okay.
If I read from employment all the way to where it says employees, even employees to employees and their families.
Sure. No, but what I'm saying is today we're here, you're asking for clarification. You'd like to ask this
Clarification and amended so that when it's written and looked at, all the language clearly states, when it comes to us, not seasonal, not employment, not part-time, not full-time.
And the only item that I'm pointing out is, the other option would be, you can say that seasonal employees are allowed if they're related to the city commission. That will not be a problem either. You know, I know that you're saying that you remember the intent of this, but you're asking for clarification tonight, and you're, from what I'm gathering is, you're gonna request a motion that seasonal applied to everybody, that if you're related to anybody in this city, you cannot be hired. But I'm telling,
City, anybody in this council.
I'm sorry, city, on this council. What I'm telling you is, it's not breaking the law to say, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion that seasonal employees may be related to the city commission. That will not be a problem. If the motion goes that way, or however you'd like to, but I'm just giving you the options.
Right.
That's the only thing I'm saying.
Well, I just don't think they, and I'm going to go back to, I don't think it should be any of our families. I just think that we have the ability to impact people, impact our community by what we do here day to day, that when it comes to opportunities for other people to be able to work for us, it should be other families having that. We have the great opportunity to make a difference with what we do here. Let the other people, us, and you know, you can actually have your cousin working, and it'd be okay. But nobody in the levels that are here. That's what I'm saying. Let other people have that opportunity, not our family. That's what I'm saying. Seasonal, full-time, part-time, and the part of, if they're already working here, I mean, I can live with that. I can live with that, because people were working, they're making a living. It's not their fault that somebody runs and wins. Or maybe it is. But I'm just saying that it's the other part that I do have. I want to change, clarify and change. And then even the way that it's written, so that it doesn't have to go through all this back and forth. So I'm asking for that to be approved, to amend it, so that no one in our families within those ranges be allowed to work for us.
If I may, Mayor?
Uh-huh.
That was one of the things that I did question
know.
before I decided to run, because I didn't want it to affect my family members. And so I was told otherwise, and I did explain it to my son. As a matter of fact, I did tell him, if I do win, you might not be able to work for the city. Might not was the key word. He was told that it was going to be considered a transfer, because it's seasonal. You're transferring from one sport or activity to another, and that's why he applied. But, I mean, I'm all for it. I have nothing against it. I mean, if everything else is going to stay the same, and we're just going to include seasonal as part of the policy that's there, I'm okay with it. He's okay with it. We're good.
Does our charter say something about employees, our commission or anything? Because the charter overtakes our policy.
Yeah, Could not find anything in our city charter, online or in paper drafts that we have that indicate anything about nepotism. I could not find it.
That's why we did policy.
To be in line with state law.
Yes.
That's what I'm asking for, a motion to amend the policy so that, be it seasonal, part-time, full-time, members, family members within the constraints as we already have existing on kinship belonging to the commission, not be prohibited from working.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Mayor, and just so that I'm clear, this is from the future on.
Yes, sir.
So anybody that's working related to the commission, seasonal, stays
Yes.
on. Thank you.
Item C, consider authorizing interim city manager to accept the resignation of Albert Trevino, doing business as Bob Trevino Insurance Agency as a city agent of record effective July 25th, 2014. I put this item also on the agenda. And typically, when someone is, well, I guess what happened, the way I want to look at this, when the firm for Mr. Trevino came forward, one of the things that I kept hearing from our staff was, well, you know, we've got to take this, do this and not go out for any bids because of the, or proposals because of the timing, because of the rates that we can get through Trevino, and because we have 3 years that we are still confined to be with them, okay? That's what I kept hearing, and I know that they worked through it and were able to get us a 9% from a 25%. Folks come up here, we approve it. I ask them, you know, how much they're making from the contract, that they are now the broker for the insurance. And the young lady, I remember her name, but she said something like 4%, between 4 to 7, but she said 4%. That's correct. 4%. Fine. And so we approved it. 2 days later, we get a letter of resignation stating, I can't do it anymore. I'm too busy. So what I find about this was Mr. Trevino didn't know 2 days before that he was going to be too busy, and 2 days after. So I wanted to go back and find out, well, what are the ramifications? Because one of the things that I heard from our staff is they're the ones that are going to help us with problems with our people. And now, well, they're going to be gone by the 25th. And that's the reason we stayed, because we were told that we had to stay for 3 years. So I requested, I saw what was included here, and I requested the minutes. So what we have here is a letter by JJ stating in 2009 that we're bound to these folks until we decide not to. What I wanted to find out when I got the minutes included was, when was this contract approved, and what are the ramifications of the contract, say, when somebody like him decides, I'm not going to do it anymore, you've just sold us the insurance, you're probably going to take the 4%. I don't know that, but I suspect you will, and then you walk out. What does our contract say to protect us from that, or do we have anything else that we should be able to do? Because we're now going to have the insurance with nobody to help us, because that was a selling point, or one of the selling points. So have you had an opportunity to review the contract?
I have met with Ms. Gonzalez a couple of times, and we can't find anything in the file as far as a contract. We found the minutes, we found the letter where they are engaged by the city, and that they will be the agent until they are terminated or resign. That's what we could find. Now, I mean, I've had issues finding other files and other items, so I'm not sure, you know, where that contract is. But I haven't called Mr. Trevino myself to ask him if, you know, if there was a written contract or if it just slipped by, you know, which may have happened. I'm not sure. I cannot find a contract at this time.
Then I don't want to accept the resignation. I mean, he can walk out, I suppose. But I'd like for you then to make contact with Mr. Trevino and find out if he has a contract, that we've lost our contract supposedly, or there wasn't a contract, because I did see the minutes when this was approved, and it took like 2 minutes to approve it. And council was present at that one. So and let me ask you this, if, when this was done, and if it was done in 2009, you know, our folks, I think, Ms. Gonzalez, you kept saying 3 years that we were bound to them. Where did you come up with that 3 years that we had to stay with them? Record, agent of record? Okay.
The 3 years, she's talking about Blue Cross Blue Shield. That's what
Okay.
she's talking about. That we don't have to go out for bids, because we've had this discussion as well. We don't have to go out for bids this coming year or last year, whatever it may have been, because we were in a 3-year contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Our contract was only with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Cross Blue Shield for 3 years.
That Bob Trevino helped us get.
Bob Trevino's office was the one that did the tabulations for the insurance.
Are you aware, I know you've been here longer than the 2009 when it was granted. Were you aware of any contract was ever discussed or that you ever heard was being discussed prior to that? Okay.
Mayor, if I may, I just wanted to correct an item of fact, as you said, and you were not present at this meeting, that this was done in 2 minutes. I can assure you, and I'm sure that if Yoli Jackson was here, she would recall, and I'm sure Carmen recalls, that we had a meeting that lasted probably about 4 to 5 hours prior to this meeting, where we debated back and forth what we were going to do with the insurance. And we had 3 or 4 insurance providers in the room, and we went back and forth and back and forth. And it wasn't until after that meeting that we decided we don't want to have to do that again, because we spent 4 to 5 hours debating back and forth and essentially negotiating at a city commission meeting with 3 or 4 different insurance companies what we were going to do. And at the end, I don't feel that we came out with the best deal, the best bargain for the city or the employees. But we were at a situation where we have to make a decision. That's why that meeting lasted as long as it did, because we were, as we were this time, we have to make a decision today. And then it was at that point where we had the conversation about how do we avoid this in the future. We'll go into insurance of record, and then we went out to bid, and that's why. But I just wanted to clarify that it didn't take 2 minutes.
No, and
to
you're
make
talking
this
about the
decision.
insurance. I'm talking about the agent of record.
No, that's what I'm saying.
You all had proposals from agents of
There
record?
was, yes.
I was not involved in that.
I don't think
Mayor
that you
Pro Tem.
were.
No, I think it,
It was, I know Yoli was, and I don't think that
okay,
Ms.
no,
was
I,
here.
So what is, when you go out for proposals for agents of record,
go out for qualifications.
for the qualifications,
RFQ,
okay?
correct.
Then what is the standard? How long are those in effect? Since we being the city can only have a 1-year contract,
And then we review it the following year.
every year it has to be reviewed,
Yes.
correct? So,
Again, Mayor, if I can, just from my experience, not only serving on this commission, but I just went through this exercise with the Amigos del Valle for the insurance for the employees, with the Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council as well. And typically, they have the same requirement that they cannot enter an agreement longer than 1 year. And with the insurance of record, Amigos del Valle had the same insurance of record, insurer of record for 20 years. And now we've changed. And the same with the Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council. They've had the same insurance of record for, I think, 15 years. And typically, it's not a length of a contract. It's you will be the insurance of record for the length of the insurance. And then when we need to go out again for insurance, at that point, you have to decide in advance, obviously, as we found out because of the time crunch, we have to find a plan in advance. You know what, we want to make a change, let's go out for RFQs and then,
right.
and then see it. And then you hire an insurance agent of record, and then they will bring proposals of insurance, if that's what you choose to do.
Have contracts with them?
The contract, no, the contract is with the insurance company. And the insurance of record is basically,
A
he
free
gets
agent.
paid, yeah, he gets paid by the
Well,
insurance.
And that's the problem. You've just gotten the contract, you just brokered the deal. 2 days later, I'm out of here. I have a problem with that. And if we don't have a contract that would be able to say, because of you, we contracted this particular insurance, you're going to get your 4% or whatever percent that is, and we're, part of the bargaining here, and then I specifically requested was, what do they provide for us? Do we even need one? And it was, well, because they do all this other stuff for us. Well,
Because they provide a lot of services to our
and so,
employees.
right, and so that was part of the reason, it was approved with Mr. Trevino, but now Mr. Trevino's gone. So I want to know, what recourse do we have? Because now it's a month later and he's gone, he's taken his share, but we're not going to have anybody.
Would you
So-
like us-
I don't know, we know that for sure, but
No, I don't know that for sure, but I'm not sure that he would do it for free.
But I can tell you that I'm not inclined to accept his resignation either, because I need to know exactly what is gonna happen now, because I know that they do provide services to our employees, one of which is the personal consultation, which I think is extremely important. As much as technology has advanced, it is still extremely difficult for anyone to be able to be negotiating, or not negotiating, but gathering information from the insurance company over the phone. I think that personal contact is what's important, and that's one of the reasons why I thought it was extremely important to have that, because, those other things that the mayor mentions, just those other things, well, those other things I think are very important when you're sitting there in a situation where you don't know what you're gonna do, you've just been injured on the job, or you've just contracted a very serious disease, as has happened. We've had in the past, unfortunately, employees that, came down with cancer, and questions are very, very, very personal, number one, and emotional, and so I think they need to have that human contact. So I'm not inclined to accept his resignation either until I know what's gonna happen moving forward, who's gonna provide, because you all mentioned, the both of you mentioned at the last meeting that you all handle about 50% of the calls
And
or
then-
questions, and then they
correct.
handle.
Well, they don't, normally, Mayor Pro Tem, what happens is, HR handles the majority. If there's a question that they can't answer, it usually goes to Blue Cross Blue Shield. It goes directly to
Well,
the,
I've spoken to both employees and to staff at Bob Trevino's office, and they would say that they have had individuals come to their office. I asked them to produce a list of any, okay, especially when it's very difficult cases. And also with benefits and
Right,
coverage.
Right, we deal with them and Blue Cross Blue Shield. And it's also more so with, when we deal with open enrollment, because open enrollment is a big deal.
And that's very important, because the decision that you make at open enrollment, you're pretty much stuck with for a year. Correct? So, I think that's a very important part, to be able to receive one-on-one information. And are we going to open enrollment soon?
yes, we are. They've already been contacted.
Because we just renewed the contract. And that's, again, that goes back to my major concern about who's going to provide that very important service to our city employees.
The renewal, Mayor Pro Tem, if I may, it's going to be very basic, because most of the employees are already enrolled. If they have a question that can't be handled locally, which I think HR does a real good job on answering all
I
their
don't
questions.
doubt that at all, and I'm not meaning to diminish Ms. Cordero's efforts and yours as well. I'm just saying that there are times, and I remember there was an issue when we had an individual that got attacked by bees, and he had some issues with coverage, and it got clarified immediately with a visit to Bob's office. And so that's what I'm trying to get at, is that we were not able to reach a conclusion here. And I'm not saying that it happens every day or every week, but when it does happen, it's very important that they're not going to have to sit there and go through an automated telephone system to get their issue resolved, because the likelihood of it being resolved through an automated telephone system is very low. And that's just the way that goes. And so I'd like to know what's going to happen now to the services that they've been providing, because, and we've talked about this at the budget meeting, you're both saying you need help, and I agree, and I believe you. Now we're adding more to your plate to do. And then, you see where you go. You all have your plate full already, and now we're gonna be adding additional work to your plate. So I wanna know, how are we gonna address the problems now that we don't have that service being provided to us?
go directly to Blue Cross Blue Shield, the
Right.
representative of Blue Cross.
But there's a reason that's not recommended, and that's not one of the ways that we've been doing it. Because many times, that involves an automated system. You have one, there's one for the entire valley. I'm very familiar with that process. Yeah. No, I'm very familiar, as I mentioned, through my experience with other entities. There's only one for Blue Cross Blue Shield. Actually, for many of the major, they only have one representative in our area, and so I think that personal contact, that personal conference with an individual is extremely important. And if we haven't been in that situation, which thank God I haven't, we haven't been in the situation, I think that we need to be a little more sensitive to individuals who have those problems and need additional counseling, if you will. And so I want to know who's going to be able to provide that. Because if there's one agent for Blue Cross Blue Shield for the entire valley, is that individual going to be able to do exactly that, what Bob Trevino's office has been doing for the city? And if not, then we need to get Bob back in here and say, you need to finish out the contract.
And I'd like to get that contract. I want to see the contract that got him employed.
How long would that take you, Mr. Vasquez, to give Mr. Trevino a call and find out and see if they have a copy of the contract or, something?
I can put in a phone call tomorrow,
Okay.
and I'll email everybody on the commission and tell you all what the response is.
I'd like to recommend to table this until council can bring that information and how we're going to proceed once we take a look at that contract. Is there a motion to table? Is there a second? All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. D, consider the preliminary and final plat approval of the Espinosa subdivision being a 1-acre tract of land out of the south 5 acres of the west 7 acres of south 25 acres of Lot 10, Block 8, John Klausner subdivision located at 3801 North Raul Longoria Road as requested by CLH Engineering. Mr. Cervantes.
Yes, the developer is proposing to subdivide a 1-acre tract of land into 2 lots. Mr. Espinosa is proposing to build a house in the proposed Lot 2 to take care of his elderly parents. There is an existing car lot, business, and a house in the proposed Lot 1 where Mr. Espinosa's parents live. Because of the Mao subdivision rules, the only way a second house can be allowed to be constructed in the property is by subdividing and splitting the property into 2 lots, with each lot having its own water and sewer connections. It is noted that the project engineer is requesting a variance to allow a residential lot with 15 feet of frontage to a public street instead of the 60 feet required by code. During their June 19 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the commission recommended approval of the subdivision with a 3-1 in a 3-1 vote, granting the variance as requested, but contingent on approval by the fire department.
Questions?
I'd like to know, Chief, did you approve? Because it says contingent on approval. Okay, and has that been conveyed to the, and you're willing to do it? Okay. And you know that's for your own protection, right? That's for your protection.
Other questions?
Chief, and have you conveyed to them the specs that you require for that?
Pretty much, once they get a contracted company that's going to do the work for them, they get with us, they do calculations, and then they submit all of the paperwork back to the client.
Is there a motion for approval?
I make a motion to approve with the contingencies discussed.
Is there a second? All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item
Good luck.
E, consider authorizing staff to initiate an annexation process for the Medina Estate subdivision located along the south side of Eldora Road, approximately 1,400 feet east of Retama Street. Mr. Cervantes.
So at this time, we're asking for permission to process the annexation of the subdivision. The value right now of that is 192,000, but there's some proposed construction, there's some proposed new houses, so that's going to increase. So we're increasing our.
So right now, this property is not subdivided, it's one, it is sub, okay, 'cause it just shows it as one,
It's a four-lot subdivision.
I'm sorry?
It's a four-lot subdivision.
I guess 'cause
All the
it
lots
doesn't-
are facing.
It doesn't have the lines, at least not on
It's
mine.
right after your memo, you have the
Oh, I'm
plan.
sorry.
Were they the ones that were having with the fire hydrant, or was that a different area?
No, they installed the fire hydrant. The hydrant is there.
Any other questions?
The only concern, and we've talked about this in the past, and we had held up on doing that, we had a conversation in the past about trying to square off that entire northern boundary. We had, at the time, we had held up any annexations because we were in litigation, and annexing then would have hindered us, were we able to prevail in our land dispute on the south. What I'd like to do, and in addition to this, Mr. Cervantes, is I'd like to have a conversation or an agenda item where we're discussing squaring off our northern boundary. There's a lot of properties there, and this is now gonna add just another little jagged piece. And that creates a lot of confusion for the residents that they think that they're in. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, isn't the subdivision across the street, half of the subdivision is in the city limits
No,
and half is out
no, right now, the entire subdivision is
on the
out.
north side?
Everything around the subdivision is outside the city.
Then it might be then that small strip that's just to the west of it, and it's right across the street, and so, because I've heard people complain, well, how come my neighbor across the street is in the city and I'm not? And I've explained to them, it's because the dividing line is the street.
It does get confusing. So
Well, you know, if you could bring back an agenda item with a plan, and I know that there's a formula as well to annexation, but if we can begin a discussion to really try and square that off, to avoid confusion for the residents in that area, who believe that they are, in fact, residing within the city.
what I would recommend is that we have a workshop, so we can have have a.
All the area.
I agree, because on the south side, it's equally as tricky, and we just annexed a portion, and it's it's a strip, and then now it's gonna have a little blip on the map, and the rest of it is not.
And we have those blips.
Equal
We
confusion.
have those blips all over the place.
Well,
all over the
let's plan a workshop so that we can begin to address that, so that we can have, some clarity for the residents in the area, whether they're in the city limits or not. And then Ronnie, at that same workshop, if you could, and it's been a while, but I recall that you explained to me once the formula for annexation.
10% of the years, but you all are at maximum, you can, I think it's like 300 acres that I calculated one
You can
time.
have that included, because I think that's gonna be key for any plan to move forward with annexation.
Yeah.
So, having said that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda, I'd like to tender the minutes to Mr. Rodriguez. Under A, approval of minutes, June 24th, 2014. B, monthly collection report, May 31st, 2014. C, consider second and final reading of an ordinance providing for a conditional use permit to operate a portable food concession snow cone stand at a property legally described south 266 feet of the east 208.71 feet of Lot 9, Block 8, John Klausner subdivision, located at the northwest corner of Nolana Loop and Raul Longoria Road, as requested by Emmanuel Garza. D, consider second and final reading of the ordinance providing for a conditional use permit to operate a portable food concession stand at property legally described as east 190 feet of east 605 feet of Park Lot subdivision, located at the northwest corner of U.S. Business 83 and Nebraska Avenue, as requested by Rafael Aguilar and Fabiola Ramirez. E, consider second and final reading of ordinance providing for a special use permit for the sale and on-premise consumption of alcohol beverages at Palm Event Center, legally described as Lot 1K subdivision, located at 2811 North Veterans Boulevard, as requested by Roberto Garza. The only, I'm going to pull E. The only thing I want to comment on that one, Mr. Cervantes, the ordinance is still reflecting that it can be open until 1 on Saturday. And if you remember, Ms. Regalado stated that the permit that they were requesting only went till midnight.
Oh, I thought I fixed the ordinance, but.
No, it's still reflecting Saturday until 1 o'clock in the morning. You can just
okay,
change,
we'll-
that's the only
we'll-
thing on that.
Yes, we'll make the change.
Right? Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
To approve, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's moved by Commissioner
Second.
Ramirez, second by Mayor. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
We will now go into executive session under provisions of Chapter 551, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirements of the meetings be open, 551.071, 1A, consultation with attorney in accordance with A, consultation with attorney to discuss and seek legal advice regarding a pending contemplated litigation regarding cause number C4910-95C, City of San Juan versus Otto Hoffman. Go into executive session at 7:36. regarding the executive item A, consultation with attorney to discuss the seek legal advice regarding pending contemplated litigation on cause number C49-1095C, City of San Juan versus Otto Hoffman Council.
Here. I'm requesting a motion that would allow the city attorney and/or his representative to file any and all litigation documents they feel necessary to enforce the judgment that has been taken against Otto Hoffland.
Is there, motion to approve? Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned at 7:58.